RFK is right. The country is still suffering from Biden's pandemic response. It's going to be, I think, years until we finally get back to where we were because of the pandemic response. Kids are still suffering from that. I see it in my own practice, in my private practice. Kids are still suffering from what happened to them in the pandemic. I'm talking socially. I'm talking about with the education. I'm talking about with everything. I've actually reported on some of the studies that show that the pandemic response actually hurt a lot of people and kids specifically. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to hear what RFK has to say about it. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. Has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here, where I talked about some of those studies that I'm referring to. Also follow me on X and Instagram as well. All right, so let's get into this news. Now, this comes from the Gateway Pundit, and they report that the confirmation hearing for RFK has underscored the fact that many of the alleged conspiracy theories regarding the handling of COVID have been proven true. I mean, I've literally been booted from platforms because of some of the things that I posted about COVID that turned out to be true. The lockdowns, masks, and vaccine mandates had little or no scientific basis and did not save lives. Even Fauci admits to that fact. This has also been confirmed by a congressional investigation. Sadly, the nation is still suffering from Biden's pandemic policies. Trump initially opposed lockdowns, but was eventually pressured into agreeing to a 2-week shutdown. However, Fauci, Democrat lawmakers, and the mainstream media colluded to extend and reinforce these measures, stretching what was meant to be a temporary restriction into more than 2 years of prolonged lockdowns. I mean, look no further than California reaction. Look no further than Michigan's actions. The 2 Democrat governors had some of the most strictest policies when it came to the pandemic. I mean, people suffered. People, businesses were lost. Lives were lost. All of this stuff behind their response. By the time Joe Biden took office in January 2021, these restrictions remained in place across much of the country. I mean, even today, I still see people walking around Walmart and stuff with masks on. It's crazy. But rather than pushing for an aggressive reopening, the Biden administration supported prolonged COVID measures, including mask and vaccine mandates. I mean, thank God that Trump made an executive order to no longer mandate this vaccine for federal employees and the military and stuff. And a lot of the military personnel that lost their jobs behind not taking this jab, they're getting their jobs back with pay. Thank God. But some of the longest lockdowns lasted into mid to late 2022, particularly in states like California, New York, and Illinois, what I was just alluding to. And I totally left off Illinois on that list. Another draconian takeover by using the pandemic as an excuse to take away your rights. The Biden administration encouraged states to maintain strict COVID policies, worsening the economic and societal fallout. Federal agencies, including the CDC and OSHA, attempted to enforce vaccine mandates for workforce and federal employees, while public health officials continued to push masking and social distancing well into 2022. Again, mind you, no science behind these. In fact, Anthony Fauci even admitted to that fact. The Department of Education and the teachers unions opposed to reopening schools, while at the state and local levels, vaccine mandates were imposed on teachers, employees, and even students. And even the teachers unions are pretending like this never happened. They pretending like they were not fighting to go back to school, to not go back to school, I should say. But in some extreme cases, universities require vaccination even for students attending classes virtually, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But these policies led to prolonged school closures, severely disrupting education and development. The shift to remote learning led to significant learning losses, with students falling behind in key areas such as reading and mathematics. I think we dropped all the way to like 40 in the world when it comes to education under Biden. I mean, kids are not getting any smarter, was not getting any smarter, I should say, under Biden. A report by the Center on Reinventing Public Education indicates that even 4 years after the initial disruptions, American students have not fully recovered academically, with only 56% of fourth graders performing at grade level in math, down from 69% in 2019. That is tragic. That is tragic. And again, a lot of these teachers unions are asking for more money, more funding from the Department of Education, which the Department of Education, I definitely agree, needs to be scrapped. I talked about the Department of Education years upon years ago and talked about we don't need the Department of Education. Kids are actually getting dumber because of the Department of Education. Sorry about that. Beyond academics, the pandemic exacerbated mental health challenges among students. Again, I can see that. I see that in my practice as well. It is, the kids are just struggling. Increased isolation and the access associated with remote learning contribute to higher rates of anxiety and depression. Research published in the National Library of Medicine found that children receiving virtual or hybrid instruction reported higher rates of these mental health issues compared to their peers attending in-person classes. The prolonged absence from traditional classroom settings also led to disengagement and chronic absenteeism. Also, I would add they're losing a lot of their social skills. Like, that's something that I've been teaching a lot in my practice is kids, teaching them how to make friends, how to talk to people, a lot of interpersonal stuff I be teaching, because these kids don't get that because they're no longer in school. In school physically. Parents have expressed growing concerns about their children's academic progress and overall well-being. A recent survey revealed that 64% of parents worry their children are not reaching their full potential, with 42% feeling more stressed about their children's academic success than ever before. Many parents have observed learning loss, social and emotional changes, which I was referring to, and behavioral changes in their children since the pandemic began. A lot of behavioral issues. I think behavioral issues is definitely going up as well. The COVID-19 lockdowns precipitated a significant economic downturn, the effects which continue to reverberate today. The U.S. experienced a 5.4% reduction in gross domestic product and a 2% decrease in employment during the subsequent quarter. Industries such as air travel, dining, and health services were particularly hard hit, contracting by 57.5%, 26.5%, and 29.16% respectively in the first 30 months of the pandemic. Small businesses, which really were hurt as well, face unprecedented challenges, with many unable to sustain operations due to decreased consumer spending and mandatory closures. And we had the PPP loan, but many of them were not able to get the PPP loan because of a lot of the scammers were taking advantage of that program. But this led to widespread layoffs and in some cases permanent closures. The International Labor Organization estimated a 6.7% loss of working hours globally in the second quarter of 2020, equivalent to 195 million full-time jobs. The economic strain was not evenly distributed. Women, youth, the self-employed, and casual workers with lower levels of formal education bore the brunt of income and employment losses. Women in particular were disproportionately affected due to their higher representation in sectors more susceptible to lockdown measures. As of January 2025, the path to full economic recovery remains arduous. While certain sectors have rebounded, others continue to struggle with the lingering effects of the lockdowns. The cumulative economic impact of the pandemic on the U.S. had already reached $14 trillion by the end of 2023, underscoring the enduring challenges faced by businesses and workers alike. In summary, the lockdowns now proven ineffective in curbing the widespread of COVID-19 inflicted severe and lasting economic harm, leaving businesses and workers to bear the consequences of misguided policies. With Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at the helm of the health department, the days of draconian lockdowns, forced masking, and vaccine mandates would be over. Amen to that. His commitment to individual rights, medical freedom, and transparency in public health offers a stark contrast to the bureaucratic failures of the past. Kennedy's leadership would ensure that future health policies are grounded in science, not fear-mongering, and personal choice, not coercion. His approach would restore public trust in health institutions by prioritizing informed consent over government mandates. And y'all know I am all for that. I really like RFK Jr. I suggest y'all read his book that he has on Anthony Fauci. He's like the foremost expert on Anthony Fauci, and the stuff that he writes about Anthony Fauci is very disconcerting. This man, Anthony Fauci, needs to be locked up in prison, I believe, for what he has done to our country, what he has done to the world. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.